Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Savannah Kelly. All eyes are on the Assembly of First Nations annual general meeting in Vancouver. The attempt to have National Chief RoseAnne Archibald removed was voted down yesterday. Today, we hear from her in this exclusive interview.
National Chief, thanks for taking the time to speak to us today, and I guess I can still call you National Chief. I noticed in your social media reports last evening there was a sense of relief, even vindication. Were you worried that your opponents might have prevailed yesterday?
I really came into this knowing that I was telling the truth and that we had to get to the bottom of some of the corruption issues and financial irregularities at AFN. And I didn't think so much about how the vote would go. I just knew that I had a purpose and I had a job to do, and that's what I focused on.
Awesome. The one thing that I'm not clear on, and I've covered the AFN for a long time, and I think it would be helpful for our viewers to hear your explanation for the issue of the Confederacy of Nations. What's the dispute all about?
The Confederacy has been defunct for a number of years. The last time they met was, I believe, in 2013 or 14. And it is the oversight body. It's the actual body that is supposed to oversee the AFN executive in between the assemblies. And because we haven't had that oversight, I believe that that's a direct result of what has happened. Because lack of oversight means that people can become errant. They can become improper in their decisions. And of course, the decision to purportedly suspend me was unlawful. And if the Confederacy of Nations had been in place, we might be in a different place right now than we find ourselves at this AGA, in a much healthier and better place.
I remember when Matthew Kuhnkan was elected in 2000, it was unexpected, and his executive were mostly Phil Fontaine loyalists, his predecessor. I'm seeing some parallels to your situation. Am I wrong, or are you dealing with much the same thing that Matthew did?
There's only one executive member who is a real Perry Bellegarde loyalist. I think everybody knows who that is. The other executive are executive that I worked with when I was a regional chief in Ontario. I know them, they know me, and I believe that the atmosphere of toxicity at the AFN really begun to infiltrate many things. My own staff were impacted by that, the executive was impacted by that, but it's really about the colonial structure, Paul. You know, it's really about this thing that encases us. It's not a personal thing. When you are encased in a colonial patriarchal structure, then you can be guaranteed toxicity. You can be guaranteed imbalance. You can be guaranteed these kinds of things that have happened at the AFN. So we need to change that structure. We need a new structure, and we need to move people into that structure so that they can thrive and be in a healthy environment.
It sounds like this goes far beyond the AFN. The AFN is just maybe more visible than a lot of institutions. Is that a fair conclusion to draw from what you just said?
Yeah, it's about colonialism. It's
Right.
about patriarchy. It's about the fact that, you know, our inherent and treaty rights and our inherent laws, our natural laws, our connection to the Creator and those natural laws has been interfered with and impacted by colonialism. So it's a much bigger issue for sure.
Okay. Here's a term you may not have heard recently, but I remember when Phil Fontaine and even Perry Bellegarde were accused of creating a kind of super band office where the AFN controlled the money, brought it in, and then the First Nations would be upset. And some of their political opponents said they were too close to the federal government because you have to please the colonial master in order to have the funding levels rise. So are you in a situation now where you feel like your call for transparency and accountability may make the federal government uncomfortable and the AFN may find it harder to access funding?
There's an old saying, you cannot dismantle the master's house with the master's tools. right? And that means we have to have an arm's length relationship with any government, whether they're Liberal, PC, NDP, whatever the party is. We have to have that space. We can't be enmeshed with anybody. And so if the governments decide to be punishing about that, then that says more about them than it says about us. And I think that's really important to talk about, is the use of public funds by federal governments, provincial governments, to punish First Nations or to co-opt them. That's a bigger issue. And it's not just an AFN issue.
Quite so. Some of the people we talked to over the last year or two tell us that when Guerin came down from the Supreme Court, finding that there was a fiduciary relationship, that the feds decided the strategy was to back away from oversight in order to diminish their fiduciary responsibility. So now we have a situation where some of your supporters are saying the government knew about these contracts, that CERNAC, ISC, certain liberal connected companies have benefited up till now, and the government knew it, but they didn't do anything. Is that an issue you've raised with the ministers?
I have not raised that issue yet, but I'm really glad that you're looking into that, because I believe that journalism and journalists have to dig further on those issues. I don't have any information at this point, but I think that, you know, through investigative journalism, maybe that's where we start to find these issues.
We're starting to get some of the contracts, not all. I was hoping that there was an easily accessible list. Does such a list exist? Are you prepared to release it at the right time?
I can only release information to chiefs.
To chiefs?
Yeah, that's my obligation. My obligation is to release information to chiefs, and that's what I've been doing since this whole thing started. And that's what one of the chiefs in the meeting talked about. He was like, I've received 15 emails from you, you know, and previous to that, not many. So I have an obligation to tell the chiefs the truth. And they are actually taking action. When they voted to not uphold the purported suspension, that was them saying, okay, we're going to take control of this situation. So you're going to see chiefs more active. You're going to see chiefs directing this organization. You will see less of the tail wagging the dog, as one chief put it earlier. You're going to see an organization empowered by chiefs.
Now, some of the media leaks that started all this seek to portray you as a little bit flaky. I'm sorry for using that term, but you know, I've seen the rewilding term used in a couple of media reports, and I want to give you a chance to clear that up and try to explain what you were attempting to do with your staff.
Decolonization is an important process. We're in a colonial construct, and that was my discussion, was around decolonizing ourselves within the office, and then looking at decolonization as a larger issue for First Nations. So to me, that's an actual, if you research decolonization, you'll find all kinds of educational, PhD papers, academia. You will find that this is an actual, you know, intellectual and real issue that is facing First Nations. And so the portrayal of decolonization as something that is flaky is really, it's not true.
I remember speaking to a noted elder, Jake Thomas at Six Nations, who said it took us 500 years to get this messed up. It may take us 500 to get straightened out.
That's right.
I heard you telling the chiefs that they represent sovereign nations, and that raises another issue that some of your predecessors, Matthew Kunkam especially, talked about revitalization of Indigenous nations. But I do the math, and there's 600 plus First Nations, and there's maybe 60 Indigenous nations. And right away you can go, boy, that means 500 odd chiefs are not going to be chiefs anymore. Is that something you're going to pursue, the idea of I know it's a troublesome question, but
Yeah, like it's a difficult question to answer in 8 or 9 minutes, let alone 1 minute of that 8 or 9 minutes. The thing about nations is that, you know, we drove across Canada to get here, my staff and I, and we drove for days, hours and hours and hours. And all of that land that we drove through is First Nation land. It's land that was given to us by the Creator. And prior to contact, we were nations. You know, and as a result of being nations, we made those treaties. Only nations can make treaties. And so how do we, within the colonial construct, begin to look at the organization of ourselves on those nation bases, or what we like to call in my office international, because it's like all of these nations across Canada. I have 2 years left in my mandate. So I'm one piece of a bigger puzzle piece. Like I'm just like one little dot on a big puzzle piece that has to be put together and as you said, what Matthew said, you know, reconstituting and revitalizing. So I have 2 years to do my part. But this is a big, long story. First Nations are a long story that go back to time immemorial and will go forward thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So these 2 years that I have, I'm going to do everything I can to be a part of that solution of decolonizing ourselves, creating our own institutions based upon our culture, our traditions, our languages. I'm going to do my part. But not one national chief will solve the thousands of years that have predated this today, and will not certainly solve the thousands of years to come. But we can each do our part, and that's what I'm going to do.
Okay. Finally, I don't think I've ever heard the word love used so much in political discourse as I heard yesterday. Is this a sign of a female national chief? We're going to go for a totally different approach?
Love in the colonial construct is always talked about from the romantic perspective, but real love is family, it's friends, it's a feeling and an emotion and a spiritual kind of energy that wants the best for you. I want the best for you. I want you to be lifted up. That's the love that we're talking about. And it's long overdue that the ideas around a deep and abiding love and care for our people came to the forefront. Because then we're not making political decisions of our mind, but we're thinking about our children, our grandchildren, the 7 generations ahead, the people around us, and how we are moving forward to give those people a better life, to help them, to lift them up.
And that interview was done by our own Paul Barnsley. He's executive producer of APTN Investigates. While much of the AFN AGA has been focused on the political drama, the potential leaders of tomorrow urged chiefs to think of the people. The co-chair of the AFN National Youth Council called out chiefs for not sticking around on Tuesday when there was a blanket dance for the family of Frank Young, the 5-year-old from Red Earth Cree Nation who has been missing since April.
Every time our chiefs had used our children and our youth as an election platform, the AFN National Youth had to witness you walk out of a room to support the finding of a missing child who the government of Canada had given up on. Today I plead to you, the chiefs in assembly, and I plead to you, the people of all of our nations across this country, to remember Frank Young. And remember all of the other missing First Nations children out there who are waiting to come home. Every time you decide to squabble amongst yourselves, you forget the children and the young people that you once swore to protect.
We have to step aside for a short break. Still ahead, former workers at a privately owned Ontario group home are blowing the whistle, saying some kids are being put in danger. Welcome back. With no public announcement, a child welfare company the Ontario government has been investigating for years surrendered its license to operate foster care homes last May. And while the province says the company, called Connor Homes, is unfit to run foster care homes, the government is still letting it operate group homes. APTN News partnered with Global News on the project. Here's Global reporter CAROLYN Jarvis. CAROLYN?
While we were investigating, Connor Homes Management sent this email to staff, telling them no one can make public statements to the media, not now or ever. But the former workers you're about to hear from are blowing the whistle, saying some kids are being put in danger.
It's awful.
It's just money focused.
If they cared about the kids, you never saw it.
They should be shut down.
We have agreed to hide the identities of these former Connor Homes workers because of the risk of reprisal. Still, they insisted their message be heard.
I just felt like I was creating monsters out of the kids.
For 46 years, Connor Homes operated foster care and group homes, and it still runs 3 group homes in Eastern Ontario, a for-profit business funded in part by taxpayer dollars.
I feel like they just cared about the money and not the kids.
Former workers say making money meant cutting costs.
One of the youth was going to school, and Connor Homes put their schoolwork in a grocery bag, as if the kid needs any other type of sign that they're a group home kid.
Workers say Christmas gifts were mostly clothing instead of toys because budgets were too tight to afford both.
The youth were lower than anybody, and management had this power trip.
The imbalance of power was seen in many ways, say workers, including the unjustified use of physical restraints, a practice the government only allows if a child is at imminent risk of hurting themselves or others. Were they telling you to restrain when there was no imminent risk?
That's correct.
We were told to restrain them if they break a plate.
According to the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, breaking the rules isn't a new thing for Connor Homes. In 2017, a fire at one of its homes killed a youth and a worker. 2 separate investigations found issues at the home, including a window made of plexiglass blocking an escape route. Though Connor Homes was found not to have violated the fire code, 4 years later at a different home, ministry inspectors reported plexiglass was being used again, asking, is the fire marshal aware?
They would just put that there as a quick fix to make sure they didn't have to pay for a new window.
Inspectors noted the plexiglass issue was addressed. Passing an inspection was critical to having Connor's license renewed, and in secretly recorded audio from September 2020, a manager is heard preparing staff for a ministry visit.
What is a level 2 serious occurrence? Everybody has questions about this.
Workers who say they were put on the job with as little as 3 hours of training and an orientation didn't have the answers to basic questions.
When you're reporting a serious occurrence, what do you say to the on-call manager?
I don't know. I've never reported one, honestly.
Connor Homes declined an interview, but said in a statement workers receive regular training, and the company strives to exceed the legislated minimum regulatory standards. And yet, former workers say the kids who live there were worse off when they left.
Most are still in trouble with the law or drugs. They just go down bad paths because nobody cared about them. So why should they care about themselves?
CAROLYN Jarvis for APTN National News.
We continue our investigation into Connor Homes tomorrow night with a deep dive into the company's finances, asking, are taxpayer dollars reaching kids in need? We have to take one more quick break. When we come back, a new performance is blending the past, present, and future of First Nations people in the Yukon. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. While visiting Waterton National Park in Alberta, LJ and his wife of the Blackfoot Confederacy came upon a group of deer. This friendly little fellow was kind enough to come close and pose for a picture. Send your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the east coast, we've got 21 degrees and sunshine in Charlottetown, 20 degrees and rain in St. John's. Kuujjuaq, 16 degrees and rain, 9 degrees and rain as well in Nain. 20 degrees, mix of sun and clouds in Chibougamau, 23 degrees and mostly sunny in Quebec City. Toronto, 28 degrees, mostly sunny, little bit of cloud, 23 degrees in Sault Ste. Marie. Wawa, 17 degrees and sunny. Thunder Bay, rain, 26 degrees. To northern Manitoba, we've got 23 degrees and sunny in Churchill, 26 degrees and sunny in Thompson. 24 degrees, mostly sunny in Gimli. Dauphin, 25 degrees, sunny as well. In Saskatchewan, we've got 27 degrees and sunshine in Saskatoon, 23 degrees and rain in Regina. 28 degrees and rain in Stony Rapids, 24 degrees and mostly sunny in Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, we've got Fort Chip with 26 degrees and sunshine, high level 25 degrees and rain. Red Deer, 22 degrees and rain. Medicine Hat, 26 degrees, mix of sun and cloud. Kamloops, 24 degrees and rain. Canal, 18 degrees, rain as well. Fort Nelson, we've got 28 degrees and showers there. Prince Rupert, 16 degrees, rain there as well. Rock River, we've got 24 degrees, rain. Watson Lake, also rain, 26 degrees. To the Northwest Territories, 32 degrees and sunshine in Norman Wells. Yellowknife, also sunny, 26 degrees. A new performance in the Yukon is getting rave reviews. It's based on the past, present, and future of First Nations people in the territory. As Sarah Connors tells us, this spectacular show is a must-see for everyone.
From casket drumming, inland Tlingit dance, and even a Vuntut Gwich'in spin on a Red River jig. Dreaming Roots is a performance by and about First Nations people in the Yukon, weaving together works from 50-plus Yukon Indigenous artists in dance, music, storytelling, and more.
It's beautiful. It's their vision of the history of this place and its people.
Diet Van Lieshout is Dreaming Roots co-director. She says the performance is Yukon First Nations people's journey through the past and present and their dreams of the future.
This is all, like, this work is new for them, and it's their creation, and it's traditional, it's new, it's contemporary, it's like, you know, visionary. It really speaks to the climate of our Yukon society.
Will they listen to me? Tell me who are they?
Performers range from all 14 First Nations in the Yukon and were challenged to create their own works for the show. Themes include the impacts of residential school, the relationship with salmon, and Yukon's northern landscape. Van Lieshout says it wasn't easy, especially because COVID restrictions prevented the cast from gathering during the months leading up to the production.
We actually never got to really gather until 2 weeks ago, the whole cast. So people have been working in, you know, they've been working individually, they've been working just with their group.
It is inside of us. It is inside of us.
Dreaming Roots had a 2-day run in Whitehorse in June, but later this year it will tour in all Yukon communities.
I would love for people to be inspired. I would love for a child to be sitting out here and go, I want to do that. I want to do that.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Well, that's all the time we have for your midweek news. For news anytime, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Savannah Kelly. Have a great night.